Yo, what is going on, guys? Flashverse here, and welcome back to another video on The Flash Season 7. Yeah, we got some new promo images released for The Flash Season 7, Episode 6, titled The One with the 90s. And honestly, guys, this is probably the most confused I've ever been when seeing promo images. It's at a point where honestly I'd rather solve an impossible math question. But yeah, we have 13 new promo images to go over and break down. And as I go over these images, as usual, I will be giving you guys my overall thoughts and theories to what could be going on during that specific scene. So as of the time I'm recording this video, we are 5 episodes into The Flash Season 7. And we are obviously exploring the 4 different forces as the main storyline of the season, with the Strength Force, the Sage Force, the Speed Force, and the Still Force. And in the most recent episode, we have learned that Fuerza and Psych are just like the Speed Force itself. So they are also a cosmic entity which embodies the force they possess. So Fuerza being the one with the Strength Force, and Psych being the one who possesses the Sage Force. So yeah, you could say that they're almost like godlike beings. So it's going to take a struggle for Team Flash to take them down. And going into episode 6, we will be exploring the final force, which is the Still Force, and most probably the person who will embody the Still Force and who will possess the Still Force will be Steadfast. Now, from the trailer of the episode and the synopsis, we do know that Cisco and Chester will be traveling to the year of 1998, and it seems like one of those, fun episodes which we will normally get. It's not a filler episode because we are still exploring the last force, which is the Still Force, so it's still directly connected to the story they are going for, but it will also be heavily Chester-centered episode, so it's not a filler episode, but it's going to be one of those fun episodes we usually get in a season. But before I go over anything, however, you guys don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel so you are aware of more Arrowverse content coming your way. Okay, so there is really no particular order for these promo images, so I will just go over these images to the pretty straightforward ones first, and then I'll go over to the more interesting ones and obviously the more unique ones, which will require a lot more discussion than the others. And also I'll try to go over these promo images in order, so this is basically in my point of view to what I think will be taking place during the start of the episode and what potentially will be taking place towards the end. So the first shot is this one over here. Now, as you guys can see over here, we have Nora Allen, or the embodiment of the Speed Force, checking up on Barry. Now, will this be Nora waking Barry up or something along those lines? I'm not entirely sure. But Barry, from when this episode picks up, is still in the cryo temperature chamber because last episode he started to get severe headaches after his battle against Fuerza, and then right after that against Psych. And yeah, due to those battles affecting Barry in a negative way, Barry has no choice but to go back into the cryo temperature chamber so that his issue can be resolved, because he's been having severe headaches towards the end of episode 5. So I'm interested to see how Team Flash will be solving that issue. Now, from what I have seen so far with the synopsis and the trailer, I don't think Barry will be in this episode that much. If I have to guess, he will be in the cryo temperature chamber or cryo sleep for at least the first half of the episode. So there won't be much Barry during this episode. But as I said, it will be very interesting to see what gets Barry able to wake up and how they solve this headache issue which Barry has. But we do have Caitlin to the right of the Speed Force, and she's probably the one checking up on Barry and seeing whether or not he's normal or not. Or maybe she's trying to find a solution to stop Barry from having a headache, and the Speed Force is pretty much explaining it to Caitlin. I'm not entirely sure. Now, we do then have this shot of the Speed Force, and it seems like she's explaining something to Team Flash over here, or they're trying to find a way to fix Barry's issue. Now, we do know that this shot is also during the start of this episode because Nora is wearing the same clothes as the previous shot. But also behind the Speed Force, we do see this monitor of Barry's suit, and it does still show those cryo temperature labels over there. So clearly during this point Barry is still in the cryo temperature chamber, so this is definitely towards the start of the episode. So this shot is probably like the Speed Force explaining what these different forces are and what they mean to Team Flash. But also another shot which is definitely taking place during the start of the episode is this shot of both Chester and Cisco. And we do know that Steadfast will eventually send them to the year of 1998 in some way, whether it's literally or subconsciously. But this is also definitely during the start of this episode, because both Cisco and Chester are still in present day. They are not in the year of 1998 just yet. So yeah, this is definitely during the start of the episode, and this is probably like moments before they end up time traveling to the 1990s. So this is probably during the explanation scene of the Speed Force explaining these different forces or something along those lines at least. But in the next shot, this is, I'm guessing, later on in the episode, because Caitlin is dressed differently compared to the previous shots. But over here we have both Caitlin and Iris standing side by side, and they are looking at something. So at this point, I'm guessing this is them investigating what happened to Cisco and Chester, as during this point I would expect them to be gone. Judging from the fact that this shot is taking place later on in the episode because Caitlin is dressed differently, this would mean that Chester and Cisco would have definitely time traveled by this point. Now in the next shot we have Barry, Iris, Caitlin and Nora, or the Speed Force. Now as I said, since Caitlin and Iris are wearing the same clothes as the previous shot, and saying that Barry is awake from his cryo temperature sleep during this shot, this is definitely later on in the episode. Now the thing over here is that just like the last shot, Iris is folding her arms while Caitlin is still hugging that tablet. This is probably just like a further angle from the previous shot, and it's just showing like the other Team Flash members and not just zoomed into Iris and Caitlin. Now the fact that Caitlin, Iris and Barry are all looking at the Speed Force leads me to believe that the Speed Force is explaining something to them. Maybe she is talking about what might have happened to Cisco and Chester, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe during this scene, the Speed Force is explaining what the Steel Force is able to do and how it is that Cisco and Chester ended up in the 1998 or something like that. I have no idea. But we do then have this close-up shot of Barry. Nothing that needs much to talk about, it's just a close-up to Barry, probably during the explanation scene or something like that, but in Barry's point of view. But we will definitely be getting Barry during this episode. It's just a matter of fact that how much will we get Barry, because by the looks of it, as I said, during at least the first chunk of the episode, Barry will be in the cryo temperature sleep, and then maybe after Cisco and Chester have gone, this is when Barry wakes up or something like that. But from what I am assuming, Barry will either be there for like at least 20 to 30% of the episode, like nothing that much, because as I said before, this episode seems to be mainly Cisco and Chester focused as they travel to the year of 1998 and they try to discover what is going on. But brace yourselves guys, because this is where things get really, really interesting. Now we do have this shot of the Speed Force, but then we have this shot of Iris with an afro, dressed very differently. She's wearing stuff which you normally wouldn't see Iris wear. But just like Monica in WandaVision, during the 1970s episode, Iris also has the afro. Now the reason I'm mentioning WandaVision right now is because I do have a certain theory to what I think could potentially be taking place, but I'm not 100% certain. Now we do also have this other still of Iris once again dressed in like this 90s 70s like fashion with the afro and then the other dress. But we do have Iris in the first shot looking at Frost. Now speaking of Frost, we do have Frost from this shot over here, and she's also dressed in a different way. And she also has this wavy curly hair. Now just like from WandaVision, during WandaVision's episode 5, that being set in the 1980s episode, Wanda also did have that curly styled hair, which Frost now has. So Frost is most probably representing the 1980s or something like that. But we do also have the shot of Caitlyn, and she is also dressed very differently as well, and her hair is very, very different. Now obviously it's just a wig, Danielle didn't actually cut her hair like that, but unlike the others, I have no idea which time period or style this could be from for Caitlyn. But we do also have the shot of Joe. He's just looking badass as always. Whatever Joe wears, he can definitely pull off. He is over here with Iris, and Joe seems to be wearing some fashion from the 1950s with the hat and the suit. Now, to the right of Joe, you do see this monitor, and it has some green marks over there. So is that like the amount of still force energy or something like that? But again, we do end the images with this other shot of Joe in this fashion as well. Now, what could be going on over here? So what could be going on is that each character could be representing a different year from the 1900s. So obviously Joe could be from the 1950s to 60s, Iris could be from the 1970s, Frost would be from the 1980s, and obviously we know that Chester and Cisco have traveled to the year of 1998, so they're representing the 1990s. No idea which year Caitlyn would be representing, but then we have the Speed Force, Star Labs, and Barry all in present day, so that is the really confusing part. And I don't think that this would be some sort of an ordinary special event which Team Flash would be pulling. Once where they find out that Chester and Cisco have traveled to the 1990s, they pull off this 1900 centered thing. It's definitely not that. I think that there's something happening over here which has a more in-depth thing going on. Now, going back to the monitor which Joe was next to, we did have these green marks of some green stuff, and we do know that the still force will be the green lightning. So maybe Steadfast has used the still force, and while Barry maybe went to confront him as the Flash or something, if that does happen, Steadfast maybe ended up changing Central City to different periods of time. Maybe it could be that each individual is stuck in a different time period. Who knows? But as I said, I have no idea what's going on over here. This is probably the most confused I've ever been when seeing promo images. But yeah, I'm very interested to see what is going on. But yeah guys, thanks for watching. If you guys have enjoyed the video, please give a like and subscribe. Be sure to tell me in the comment section down below whether you guys have any other ideas. Yeah, I will see you guys in my next video.